Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Vaughan, the Durham City Police Department Criminal Investigations Unit. Today, the Durham Police Department is here to discuss the confirmed identity of some skeletal remains that were found inside of a storage unit back in 2016. Those remains have been identified as a Melissa Poitra, who was last seen in Durham in 2005. We were able to confirm the identity of the skeletal remains through advanced forensic testing, which was recently completed. At this time, I would like to introduce Sergeant Quincey Tait of our Homicide Unit, who will now share the details of the investigation and also where our investigation stands at this time.
Good afternoon. My name is Quincey Tait, and I'm the Sergeant of the Homicide Unit. On October 22, 2016, Durham Police Department officers were called to a self-storage facility located at 1725 Carpenter Fletcher Road in reference to possible human remains. The caller told officers they were cleaning out the storage unit when they noticed a plastic storage container with a bone sticking out of it. The caller told officers the storage unit was being cleaned out after the death of the person who had been renting the unit. The skeletal remains were sent to the North Carolina Office of the Chief Medical Examiner Office for an autopsy. Though OCME was able to collect DNA and work with the University of North Texas, UNT, to develop a DNA profile from the skeletal remains. The Jane Doe DNA profile was entered into the National Combined DNA Index System, CODIS, in February of 2017. In 2018, the Durham Police Department and the OCME sent the skull from the skeletal remains of Jane Doe to the Federal Bureau of Investigation to perform facial reconstruction. The FBI was able to complete the facial approximation and provided DPD with a possible image of Jane Doe. This image was released to the media in hopes of identifying Jane Doe, but investigators did not receive any viable leads. In 2020, the Jane Doe case was entered into the National Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP, which is a database designed to coordinate efforts between law enforcement agencies to share information about violent crimes, missing persons, and unidentified remains. In 2020, DPD investigators also reached out to Othram Lab in Texas to see about conducting more advanced forensic DNA testing. Othram is a forensic laboratory that builds profiles that can be used to identify victims or suspects. Othram specializes in challenging evidence in-house from DNA extraction and enrichment to sequencing and genealogy. While DPD investigators were looking into an unrelated case in the fall of 2020, they learned that Melissa Poitra had not been in contact with her family for many years after leaving North Dakota. Melissa Ann Poitra was last known to have been seen in Durham in late 2005. DPD investigators worked with the Poitra family to obtain DNA samples from family members of Melissa Poitra. On April 23, 2021, an independent company named DNA Solutions confirmed that the DNA samples for the Poitra family members were a match to the Jane Doe DNA profile and that the skeletal remains were of Melissa Ann Poitra. In 2005, Melissa Poitra would have been 28 years old. She was a Native American woman from the Turtle Mountain Chippewa located in North Dakota. She had straight black hair, brown eyes, and a tattoo of a rose and a tattoo of Missy on her arms. She was known to frequent the East Durham area. She was also a mother. The cause of death has not been determined, but it is being investigated as a homicide. Anyone with information is asked to call Lieutenant Vaughan at 919-560-4440, extension 29334, or Sergeant Tait at 919-560-4440, extension 29326. Crimestoppers pays cash rewards for information leading to arrest in felony cases, and callers never have to identify themselves. Thank you for your time. Sure, that's actually a really good question. We had to work through a lot of different processes and agencies to coordinate a lot of the DNA collection and samples. So it's not an easy process. It's not a very quick process. We have to do things in a certain manner. And so it took a little bit of time because we had to go through a lot of different organizations to get to where we are now. Each case is different. So I know for us, Othram came in towards the end. That is an agency that that can be used if other methods have failed. So I guess a learning lesson could be we could go to Othram if, CODIS doesn't work or some other avenues don't work. So they do a lot of DNA, genealogy, DNA extraction, enrichment to help with forensic DNA. So they were able to kind of get us on this path where we are now. And then DNA Solutions came in and helped us seal the deal, basically. I do not want to get into if they're suspects or not because it's still an active case, and we are still working some leads. Again, I don't want to give that out.
The one thing I would like to add, just because we are working the case together with some things, is we're trying also to build up a little more information about Ms. Poitra. Just because we're saying 2005 is the last time DPD has had contact with her, it doesn't mean that she could have been in the area or somewhere else in 2006, 2008. So the more we can learn about her and try to make those interactions, could we develop something? There are the people to talk to, yes, but do we know which way to go? Because we don't know. Did she have a boyfriend? Did she have other situations going on in her life that maybe we're not aware of? So that's one of the things why we're asking today is to help from the community to be able to come forward and say, oh, yes, I do know her, or I had an interaction with her, to tell us a little something about her. She was part of an incident report that's reported to the police department. As far as I would go with that, there's some information we want to keep so people can let us know about things. I want to make sure they're telling us details that only we know. The area that maybe she come to frequent too. That's one of the things too, trying to learn about her travels. Just by the interactions with the police department, just that was in that area. And also the travel registration from North Dakota was saying she was coming to the Durham area. So. I said go ahead.
Oh, it was being cleaned out because the owner had died, and so it was being cleaned out because he had died. No. We're trying to keep a lot of that to ourselves right now because we don't want that to get out. If information comes in, we want to make sure that it's not something that we said to the public, and now all of the information is coming back to us. So we do have a couple of leads on that, but again, I don't want to share. I can't share everything to protect the integrity of the case. We cannot confirm. We do not know.
I think now we're in the process of getting back to the family for a formal funeral process for the family.
Yes.
Medical examiner's office.
Yes, I have spoken to a couple of members of the family, and they're holding up. Still need to heal. This is the healing process and grieving. but they're doing as to be expected. I would want them to call us, so that we could have a conversation and I can actually discuss more of what we did with the family. But as far as saying it in front of a lot of people, I would actually like to discuss that with the family. And I can go into more detail with the family than the, the world right now. Like any other homicide case, it can be a little stressful and also difficult to handle. But now that we know who she is, I do feel better about that moving forward with the investigation. This this was not my case initially. Yes, so since February. Oh, I thought you meant like back in 2016 when the remains were found. So since February of this year. Pretty crucial. You're talking about Othram and DNA solution? Pretty crucial. That's why we're here now. Yeah. Possibly later, but right now, between Othram and DNA Solutions, they helped out a lot. That's the reason why we are here now. So we're very thankful and grateful for those two. Thank you all for your time.